We start with the dictionary definition of the word quiver. There are 3 definitions. First is a verb, to tremble or shake with a slight rapid motion. Second is a noun, a slight trembling movement or sound, especially caused by fear. Third and final is also a noun. Quiver is what you call a group of cobras. Hello everyone, my name is Imran and welcome to the Wacko Prophet podcast. This podcast is something done entirely by me, all by my onesie if you will, created for the purpose of discussing and geeking out about movies, TV series, books and games, all things fiction. Right now, we are right in the middle of reviewing and or discussing season 1 of the YouTube Red and Netflix series Cobra Kai. Today, we look at episode 6, Quiver. That little introduction I read is an almost word-for-word vocalization of a definition given at the opening of the episode. I have told you before that I've enjoyed certain opening scenes of some of the episodes before this, especially number 2, but this opening definitely is the most interesting. The usual format of this podcast is I will be going into detail about specific things I liked and disliked about the episode. I highlight some important parts and I make my predictions. So it goes without saying that you are expected to have watched at least up to season 1, episode 6 before getting this far in. It's alright. I can wait. You go on ahead. Are you back? Well, welcome back then. Now that you've watched the episode, please do remember that I won't be going through each scene beat for beat and word for word, and that everything I say here is entirely my opinion. I don't read any kind of reviews or opinion pieces before getting into this. I watched the episode in question about 2 to 3 days before writing. Maybe I watch it a couple of times. I rewatch certain scenes that I've enjoyed or that I felt needed a bit more observation. And then I write down the script about 2 days later. I can talk a little bit more in detail about my process of making these podcast episodes, but right now, let's get into why we are here. Alright then, as I said previously, I'll talk about the good and the bad first. The good. Number 1. A developing friendship between Miguel and Samantha. Quiver is not as action-oriented or as fun as the previous episode, Counterbalance, where, if you remember, Miguel came into his own and kicked ass against Kyler and the goons. But Quiver does follow the natural progression of that event. The first of those progressions is the beginning of a genuine, easy-to-like friendship between Miguel and Samantha. If I remember correctly, I did predict an episode or 2 ago that they may have a relationship during the course of season 1, and I assume that most of the crowd watching the show want them to get together as well, but I'm also totally okay with them having a platonic, sweet friendship as well, because that's not been done enough times in popular culture and related movies. It's always a rule rather than the exception that the lead boy and the girl has to have a brief relationship at least before they break up, so that the writers and the creators of the show or the movie can get some more drama out of it. So platonic friendships are much rarer. The best example I can think out of popular culture right now is the relationship between Captain America and Black Widow in the MCU movies. They never had a romantic relationship, but theirs was a friendship that I genuinely enjoyed and vouched for, and it was something both of them really cared about, and we cared about, despite there being no indication that they wanted to go anywhere romantically. And that's perfect, and I love that. And it'll be quite cool in Cobra Kai too, but it'll most likely end up with Samantha and Miguel getting into at least a brief relationship, because that's just how these types of shows go. If you want to prove me wrong, Cobra Kai, then go ahead. I'll be pretty impressed, and you got a thumbs up from me for that. But if you want to go down the beaten path, that's pretty cool as well. Not to mention, it would be an interesting enough plot device if the relationship thing does happen, because I don't imagine Daniel LaRusso would be happy when he finds out that his daughter is dating his childhood rival's protege. And they could get some drama out of that little confrontation, which I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll get back to you if and when it does happen. But I digress. The point is, they do a good job building up Miguel's and Samantha's friendship. She is still being harassed online and offline because of shit Kyler and his shit antics in the previous couple of episodes. And Miguel is shown to be the only one who stands by her and treats her normally. We do also get an affirmation that Samantha knows her karate stuff, because she points out some technical issues of his when he fought the bullies in number 5. She says something like he telegraphed his kick really early so that if the goons or the bullies knew what they were doing, they could have easily defended themselves against him. Call me crazy, but this has to be the show laying down the groundwork to show a badass karate scene with her and her badass karate skills. It is implied that she last practiced karate a couple of years ago, about 8 years ago, when she was 8, which means that she's 16 right now. But I'm hoping that she still has it in her blood. I'm hoping it's something like riding a bike, where once you get used to it, it's no big deal trying to get into it much later in life. So fingers crossed for that. So that's the first good thing that I like about the show. The second good thing, the flashbacks to Johnny's past. After the little dictionary definition I spoke about earlier that actually opens the episode, we get a bit of a flashback into Johnny's past, all the way back in 1979, a full 5 years before the events of the first Karate Kid movie that took place in 1984. It's a very small scene showing little Johnny riding around his bicycle, listening to Don't Look Back by Boston, which, if you have not heard it, is an amazing song. If you do actually turn on the subtitles for that opening, it does give some perfect foreshadowing for the little story arc that adult Johnny goes through during the course of the episode, which is one more thing that I enjoyed in the episode. Obviously, every TV series, every movie is more interesting when the main characters have an arc. Arc meaning they change throughout the series. The person in the beginning is not the same person that is there at the end, which is what makes fiction interesting. If the person has not changed by the end of their movie or by the end of their TV series, then nothing matters. Let me take an example again of Breaking Bad. If Walter White was the same person that he was in the episode, in the final episode or in the final season that he was in the first season, then there was no point in watching that. So a good arc is something that I really like in any sort of fiction. So one more thing that I like about this episode is that Johnny does have a bit of a progression arc in this episode, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So yes, getting back to what I was talking about, a particular scene, that opening scene where they show young Johnny listening to Don't Look Back, as I said previously, is some perfect foreshadowing for the little arc that he goes through in that episode. To the uninitiated, foreshadowing in this context is when, in the early parts of a movie or any kind of story, there are some small, subtle, or sometimes obvious hints about something that will happen later in the story. Most movies and work of fiction do some very intentional foreshadowing. So that's what Quiver does right at the beginning, which I appreciate. They don't hit you over the head with it, but it's there for those who notice. We do see that Johnny comes from wealth, but as the song suggests, he might be happier in that moment, not looking back. The scene ends with him discovering or rediscovering Cobra Kai. I say rediscovering because it might not be a coincidence that he ends up near the Cobra Kai dojo. He may have cycled there on purpose. Whichever it is, it shows us that Johnny held Cobra Kai to a very high regard from a very young age. To the adult Johnny, the dojo is associated with happy memories as much as it was the opposite for the adult Daniel. And then we see a second flashback near the end of the episode, where his family life wasn't the best. He wasn't being physically abused or anything, but he certainly seemed to lack a father figure, which I'm assuming he found in Kreese, and he found a discipline and an outlet to his frustrations through Cobra Kai. At the end of number 5, we saw that Cobra Kai now has a lot of potential students, and this episode also shows maybe Johnny trying to channel Kreese, which does not work in his favor at all. What works in the end is when he channels himself and reveals himself to be someone who found strength and confidence through the dojo. It's a very small change. Remember, I talked about Johnny's little arc in this episode. It's a very small change, but it's a meaningful one nonetheless. Zabka does a great job writing that line, as I've told countless times before. This episode sees him tipping towards being more of an actual asshole, but Miguel does not like that and steers him onto the right path again. It's a very small, very quick, very subtle little bit of drama, and I appreciate it. Okay, the third and final best thing or good thing about this episode, the way the show connects Robbie to Daniel. I spoke last episode about how I felt that Robbie's set up to work in LaRusso's place is a little contrived, like the showrunners were just finding an excuse to get Robbie to the place he needs to be in, and I still think that. But now that he's here, the show does an okay job in connecting Robbie to Daniel. The young actor who plays Robbie has the same knack for riding that line between being an asshole and being a good guy as William Zabka has. The episode sees him finding his way to Daniel's dojo. There is a nitpick here that I will make later, and if you've heard me rant in previous episodes, you may know what I'm getting at, but the end result of the episode, where Daniel was trying to find a sparring partner to his personal dojo and Robbie was trying to get close to Daniel, is done well. Also, a bit of a note here. Just as Cobra Kai can be an effective and positive outlet to those who are angry and are weak, as Johnny put it, Miyagi-Do, which seems to be at the infancy of its own return, can be a different kind of but equally positive outlet as well. When Robbie sees Daniel's form, him doing his normal karate form, which looks a lot less like conventional karate and more like a form of meditation, he seems to be genuinely intrigued. Robbie has had so much anger and energy that he has not been using positively at all that maybe Miyagi's and now Daniel's brand of karate is just what he needs. I look forward to seeing how this progresses, and also I'd imagine Johnny would not be too pleased at finding his son wearing a Miyagi-Do gi. Those are the good of the episodes. Let's talk about the bad. Now, again, by no means are those the only good things. There are some other stuff as well, but those are the three things that I thought deserved mentioning. Let's talk about the bad. I once again have only one bad thing to point out. The nitpick I spoke about earlier. The funny, quote-unquote, funny, unfunny colleague. We find ourselves once again at the mercy of the painfully unfunny colleagues of Daniels, who are given more screen time than is necessary in this particular episode. I'm going to guess both of those comic relief characters are in their late 40s, maybe Daniel's age. The episode has them acting like 12-year-olds with the hilarious, not really, pranks on the newbie, who is Robbie. Honestly, Johnny is way funnier in this episode with his dry sense of humor and I felt bad laughing at it at certain points when he's trying to be the tough guy, crease, and trying to bully his potential students into submission. But he was funnier when he was admitting that he was weak as well. So where Johnny is naturally charismatic and naturally has that dry humor that makes me laugh, these two jokers are not funny at all. But I do appreciate that the writers use these characters to move the story along and get Robbie to Daniel, but man, are they annoying. Is it just me? Are these actual good actors and I'm just really bad at seeing good comedy? I don't know, but I would think that I know good comedy when I see it, and this is not that. This is not highbrow, this is not lowbrow, it's not even on the bar. It's just pretty uninteresting, unfunny comedy. I, for one, do not know how Daniel the character tolerates them, but that's all I'll say about them right now. That's the only bad thing I have to say about Quiver. Now, I'll talk about the episode in general a bit. It is a slow episode, especially when compared to the amazing episode 5 where we saw Miguel's triumph, really. But I quite like Quiver because it spends just enough time, not too much, setting up the Cobra Kai as more than just Johnny and two students, and while also believably pushing forward Daniel's journey as well. It does feel like a setup episode, but it's quite enjoyable to watch, so I have no complaints there. So yes, those are the good and the bad, the 3 good things and the 1 bad thing about the episode. Now, I will talk about some more important points in point form. Number 1. Aisha is clearly slowly turning towards being a bit of a fanatic, but Miguel is still good. He still has a good head on his shoulders. He's very capable now and he knows he's capable. There's a very small bit of dialogue between him and Samantha where Samantha says, yeah, nobody's going to call you Ria anymore, because Ria was the bully nickname that Kyla and the friends had to Miguel. But as of their beating last episode, they've stopped calling him that. So that's cool, but Miguel still has a very level head on his shoulders, so that's good. But Aisha, as I said, is turning into a bit of a fanatic and a bully. Slightly. We don't really know how that'll go or whether that'll go anywhere at all. Number 2, Miguel needing focus on his anger, hence Cobra Kai, and Robbie needing calm and balance, hence Miyagi-Do. They're like a young Daniel and Johnny respectively, so Miguel being the young Daniel and Robbie being the young Johnny. And they meet the older selves of their own rivals, which is pretty interesting. So they're two sides of the same coin. Number 3, Kyler's face. We don't see Kyler a lot in this particular episode. We just see one scene of him seeing Miguel, and he's clearly alone, not surrounded by his gang, and his face is injured from that little beat down of the previous episode, and he avoids Miguel, and it's amazing to watch. It's fun to watch. He's done as of now. As I said, I'm completely happy not seeing him again, but I can also see him maybe joining Cobra Kai. That's a bit of a prediction, but we'll see what happens. Number 4, Miguel's friend with a cleft lip, Eli, taking Johnny's really unfair abuse and turning into Hawk, who is absolutely a badass, but it may not have good implications, because remember, Aisha was a bullied kid, weak within quotation marks, kid who turned to Cobra Kai to channel their anger, and so is Eli, because Eli is pretty much bullied throughout the entire season until this point. So we don't know how that will play out. Will he be another Miguel, or will he lean towards being another Aisha? I feel that the entire thing is in Johnny's hands, as well as it being in Miguel's, because Johnny actually listens to Miguel. So that's good. Okay, predictions. Aisha will most likely turn into a bully. At least for a little while. I want to see that. I want to see that growth and the change, and her realizing, because she's not an unintelligent character, I want her to be a bully and then realize that she was being a bully, and then maybe come back. A nice redemption arc, just to round things out and put it in a neat little bow. I'm not seeing any trailers, but I was on the verge of getting spoiled on some big things that may happen that are not entirely good or happy things, but we'll see how it goes. Those are all the predictions I'll make for now. The predictions I made last episode still stand. So I still think, and I am almost sure now, that there will be a face-off between Miguel and Robbie. So we'll see how it goes. Then there you have it. We are fast approaching the end of Cobra Kai Season 1. As I have spoken in previous episodes, I'm not sure what piece of movie or fiction or TV series that I will review or discuss or talk about after I'm done with Season 1. I'm definitely not going to Cobra Kai Season 2 right now. That I'll take a bit of a break from Cobra Kai and come back to it, and we'll see how it goes. I might not do an episode by episode discussion plus review, because it does take a long time. What I'll do is I'll most likely review or talk about a movie or one specific series in 1 or 2 episodes. One particular series I'm quite interested in right now, that I started quite recently actually, that was released yesterday, was Haunting of Bly Manor. I believe I mentioned it in the previous episode. I'm recording this again one day before the release of the podcast. That's usually not how I do it, but again, I'm still sick. The more I stay home, the more I find that I'm sick, but when I go out and I'm working, I'm pretty okay. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe I'll need to take a bit more medication than I've already been taking. So we'll see how it goes. I might actually do a one-shot review, one-shot discussion of The Haunting of Bly Manor. Maybe 2 episodes, one without spoilers, one with spoilers. Tell me what you think. So once again, this has been the Wacko Prophet podcast. You know what my social media presence is. If you don't, I've put links to my Twitter, to my Instagram, and to my Facebook page, and to my YouTube channel down in the description of this podcast. If you have any ideas, if you have any opinions, if you want to talk about something with me, or if you think I should review or talk about a specific movie or a TV series, a book or a game, drop me a like and then let me know what you think, and I'll be glad to look at it. I am a bit of a selective, negative Nancy sometimes when it comes to episodes, when it comes to movies and TV series, so I may have to force myself to watch something, but if something is good, if something is definitely good, there's nothing that will stop me from watching it. So yes, that had been episode 6, Quiver of Cobra Kai Season 1. Back here in Sri Lanka, we are seeing a bit of a surge in the coronavirus cases. I do hope that we get through this in one piece. Everyone, please remember to maintain social distancing and to wear your masks when you're in public. That is something essential. I've seen the number of people wearing masks getting lesser and lesser as time goes on. We really can't afford that. So everyone, please do your part, wear your masks. If you are non-essential in terms of your work, I hope you're working from home. I understand that the average person does not have a lot of control about whether they work or not, but companies decide that. From what I understand, a lot of people are working from home. I hope everyone is safe. I understand that the world is on fire right now, some places literally, and I hope we get through it. 2020 has been a hell of a year, and I don't mean that in a good way at all, but 2021 is fast approaching. And if this is rock bottom, baby, we are going up in 2021. So here's hoping, fingers crossed on the desk. Once again, thank you for listening to the Wacko Prophet podcast. My name is Imran. Have a great weekend. Adios and ciao.